Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's Weitzel Lightheart with Bioptimizers with another edition of the Awesome Health Podcast. And today is such a great day because we are having our first live recording from the studio in the Biohome, Venice Beach, California. This is a dream come true. We've got decks in the background running, and joining us today is Kristin Weitzel. She is the Warrior Woman Mode. Warrior Woman Mode. That's a mouthful. And Kristin is a high performance muscle maven, trainer extraordinaire. Jumps into hot saunas and cold ice baths in between ferocious muscle workouts and being an online information or infopreneur. Would that be accurate?
Definitely.
You've got a great background. Why don't you just tell people a little bit about your background rather than me kind of reading all the stuff.
For sure.
Tell me about how did you become the Warrior Woman Mode?
My background's it's been a bit of a journey, much like yours.
So where to start?
It started on Long Island, and I grew up a dancer. I was super into trying to understand where my...
Like what kind of dance?
Ballet.
Oh, wow.
Yes,
ballet. So you got the nervous system, that's a
a
really tough sport.
A lot of external rotation and a
Yes.
lot of nervous system control. Mm-hmm. Living in sympathetic quite a bit.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So dancing was amazing, and it was an opportunity for me to say, also back then, I like to touch on the fact that ballerinas back then, there was a very strict understanding of what your physical form needed to look like. And so that came with some negative stuff, right? Some body dysmorphia and things like that.
Right, because they're telling you, you're a young developing woman and you're like, oh, you're too heavy or your butt's too big or, your boobs are growing and that's not good. You need to be 13 pounds and be able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. And that's just...
Totally.
It can be very unhealthy for the psyche.
So it was bad for the brain in some ways, but I think I got really quickly... wanted to understand how I could feed my body well and still stay lean and still stay fit. And there was a lot of, miscommunication in the things I was being told and the way that I felt and all that. So figuring out very quickly, how do I eat? How do I take care of myself so that I can also sort of live in the best physical space that I'm in? And just like you kind of mentioned earlier, you sort of hit the nail on the head, which is I got into my late teenage years and developed very quickly overnight into a very different shape, a woman's shape that was...
So when did this happen particularly?
15 years old or
and
something.
And how long have you been dancing for?
I started when I was 5.
So you're 10 years in with all the goals and ambitions of a young person. And what's the time commitment on being a ballerina?
I was taking classes at least 3 days a week, and then I was headed, and I ended up going to performing arts high school as well, but I sort of shifted trajectories, a lot of which because thankfully it's different today. If you look at the prima ballerina for the New York Ballet Company, women are more shapely, they're more powerful, they look stronger, there's a different physique, an understanding of physique and strength. But back then it was just I was sort of shuffled into this hey, maybe you should look at tap and jazz and other dance forms because your figure doesn't really quite fit the mold of a ballerina.
Right.
And so that was a little bit of an initial blow to my mindset in the sense that I thought, maybe prima ballerina would be the thing I can do, right? Some people want to be an astronaut or a fireman or whatever, and I thought prima ballerina. And that went away pretty quickly.
What was that like emotionally?
It was...
Because it's kind of an interesting time. You're kind of a young, developing woman, and all of a sudden there's this judgment placed upon you by some external concept that you don't know anything about.
Yeah.
That's telling you, you're not quite what we want for this something you've dedicated so much time to.
Yeah, it was I think when you're a young woman in your teenage years, you really need a cheerleader. You're still learning how to cheer yourself on. And so all of these external pieces of information are coming at you. So it was a little heart-wrenching, really. And I'm also emotional years, right? I'm growing, hormones are fluctuating, things are getting crazy. So it was a bit challenging. I think it gave me a negative image of sort of the way that I looked on the outside that I had to kind of tackle, and probably for a bit sort of buried that down and was okay, cool, go and do some other forms of dance and theater and acting and singing and whatever else you could do that fit that performer mold. And I did a lot of things around food from that point on. Interestingly enough, I started juicing when I was like 17 or 18 years old. I bought a juicer. It was not very common back then. I was trying food combining diets, like things that may or may not work or have been wives' tales, but just how to pair food and what it was like to be. I tried veganism, vegetarianism.
Were you doing this to kind of lose weight or be healthy or to fit into a certain physical, kind of like, hey, I need to fit and look a certain way, and was that the driver?
The driver was like, I wanted to feel good and look good and feel good about myself. And I think I was connecting a lot of that to like different ways I could eat to make myself really have a lot of vitality. And I think part of my mindset was, if I can find the right eating lifestyle, then maybe I'll feel better about myself, which we know as adults, probably, that's not really the direction to go.
Right.
But I was trying real hard to connect those dots. And that's why I look back and I think such a weird journey to take it and be like, how do I put food there as the thing that might solve the issue, the deeper issue, which is that I needed to understand how to love myself more. Right. And so that started, like, I'm so thankful. Like we when you and I spoke on my podcast, it's like, you're thankful for the things and the failures or the challenges or the strife you had, because that's the thing that sort of gets you to the next place. And so I look back and think, how thankful am I that I explored all these interesting eating lifestyles and choices and trying to do things, and got made fun of sometimes, as it happens in the world, and got to the next place where I could understand what kind of foods worked for me. And eventually, through a very winding road of working in corporate America and being the girl who's launching brands like Red Bull at the same time running home from the office and going to like the gym or fitness classes, etc., figuring out how to kind of balance my life together, and then bringing me here. So the long winding road of all of that lands where I get to do what I think I was meant to do, which I needed all these years of experience around food and nutrition and studying fitness and getting certifications so that I could help women. Specifically, that's who I enjoy working with, because if you go back all those years, I think that women, we've had some challenges. It's not that men don't have challenges, it's just I like to work with women to overcome the challenges, whether it be marginalization or body dysmorphia or having low energy, or many of my clients have gotten to a place in their life where they're like, I put everything into my career and my kids, and now I turned 40 and I don't know who I am. Right? So there's this inside out mentality that we need, or mindset that we need to work on. And so, I use all the tools in my toolbox and all the biohacking that I can muster, and all of the partners and friends like you, to be able to integrate into a program with women that I think changes their lives.
That's great. We're going to get to the biohacking stuff, but I want to back the train up, because you put up a couple of points, I think, that I don't want to brush over, especially in today's world. And there's two things that I noticed about your story that I think that's really connective for women, or even men, but let's specifically for women. And so you get into this developmental stage, you've got kind of a pathway, suddenly there's a change, and you start experimenting with all these things to kind of appeal to a certain aesthetic or goals around that. And you're subjected to being made fun of or being stuff. And now, in today's world, they would call that bullying or whatever. Mm-hmm. My question is that a total negative, or do you think that's kind of a natural evolution of humans to kind of chip away at each other, and you've got to kind of develop a thicker skin and develop it? Or do you think that was so devastating that not everybody's going to overcome it, or you had some challenges from it? Like, how do you see that today? Because right now there's this massive campaign about anti-bullying and don't make fun, and then there's a dualistic racial component. So if I'm a black person, I can say things to other black people that a white person can't say. Yeah. Even though that's common, I might listen to, if I listen to certain music from black rappers, they can say things in the song that I can't repeat. If I'm singing along, I could get taken out from it. So we've kind of blurred the lines of what's kosher, what's not kosher, what's acceptable between different cultures, or what's acceptable among women, what's acceptable among men, what's acceptable race. And that's all become this mosh pit of anti-bullying, anti-hate speech, anti-negativity. But the world's a tough place.
Yeah, the world is a tough place. And cancel culture is hard.
Well, I think the consequences of trying to protect everybody from every possible thing doesn't really make, life's a rough and tumble sport and nobody gets out alive.
Yeah.
What was the impact of those challenges, both from the external about the judgment of your physique, second, maybe some of the bullying, quote unquote, or negativity that you experienced in that, and how do you think that formed you both positively and negatively?
Yeah. This is like an amazing question, and something I've been like journaling a little and talking to people about lately, because I think that there are long-term ramifications to everything, right? It's like your body keeps score, your
Yes.
cells and your brain and your energy and everything keeps score throughout your life. First, it's like I don't have children of my own, but I see with my niece and nephew, and I see with friends and clients' children who are bullied in school. You can see that it's really a tough thing to separate all the pieces, because especially as kids are growing, they are all feeling different things and emotional states. And quite often, we know this, I think, as adults who hopefully have processed or have had therapists or things, it's like, well, I was in pain and therefore I was bullying someone else. And that's part A. Part B, I think, is like, where's the line? The line keeps moving. And for me, a lot of the negative consequences, I think, of like, I do not look at myself like the foremost feminist in the world, but I do look at some of the things that went on in my life, either at that young age or even like when I first stepped into corporate America, that there is this term that I almost hate to use about saying like, there has been a long-term, long-standing marginalization of women in many work environments. It does not exist in the same way at all today. But when I was in my first corporate job in those arenas, I definitely had, and have had to own lately, that I had bosses I had amazing bosses, but I also had many more bosses that were wildly inappropriate behaving. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't necessarily just mean towards me, but just seeing, you got to call it what it is. It's just like I predominantly had white male bosses. I was in the beverage industry. I was in beer. I was in, energy beverages. I was in all of these things as they were launching. And that shift, that energy coming at you, that feels like you are being judged a lot for your external, what you look like, what you sound like. And also, my first corporate job, I was one woman in a regional team of 18 men. And when I talk about hazing, and you think about it as like a college fraternity thing,
right.
I never have been so hazed in my life as I was in that arena. And all of that can sound negative, but the thing that happened to happen, which was also the silver lining, is that I learned really quickly how to communicate and change my communication style and shift and work and have conversations with men. I learned how to slowly but surely build boundaries in my life and telling people like that's not appropriate. And it took time in some cases. And in many cases it wasn't even the people that I reported to. It would be, I'm out visiting stores and locations and bars and nightclubs. Can you imagine at like 21 years old and thinking, I've got the world on a string, I'm learning how to be like a businesswoman, and it doesn't feel like that. Like there's alcohol involved in many cases, right?
Not the most consciously aware areas when you go to a bar in New York when you're 21 years old.
Yeah.
To see your clients.
Totally. And so now I look back at it and I think, I'm so glad that the world has gotten grown some more awareness about cultural differences, about differences in the way the sexes communicate and things like that, just that we're all becoming a bit more fluid in general. But it's part of the reason that I love to work with women is because there are many women that I've worked with of various different ages that are dealing with different things like that, whether it's bullying, whether it's, challenging work situations, or whether it's, for me, quite often, I felt like, and I come into contact with women who feel like even now that they need to be able to be smaller and calmer and sweeter and hidden in order to be accepted. And that's like not the case. It's not real, right? It's a thing that we've sort of been set up for. And so there's a lot of passion in that area for me because I have run the trajectory, and I did really amazing jobs of creating boundaries and fighting back, and I did a really piss poor job in other cases when I was young and didn't know what to do. But something that it leaves you with this like, who am I on the inside? I need to figure that out. How do I get my insides to match my outsides and the person I bring to the world? And so if you have that rocky journey, and many different types of people have that journey where we're trying to figure out how our insides match our outsides and who we are and how we show up and what kind of integrity we live in and all of that. And you learn, in my opinion, you learn as much from seeing people show you what not to do as having people show you what to do. It's just, you know, I was lucky enough to have a stand-up set of parents who we lived in a, you know, medium income household. I was lucky enough to stay in a relatively the same school for most of my life. I had some, you know, there's some positive economic factors that I had that I think helped a lot. I was a good student. Like I could misbehave and run off and do all the crazy things I wanted, but I still made sure I was a good student because that was like it was sort of like if I could just get good grades, then mostly everything else, you know, responsibility wise, I was like a little bit allowed to do, you know, within reason.
That's great. I call it just the natural experimentation of youth, and hopefully you can survive it. I know as a male, I think a lot of people fail to recognize that if you make it to 30 years old as a male on the planet, I think you've just outperformed almost all of the males in history from a longevity standpoint. Traditionally, we've killed ourselves or been killed by someone else, whether that was voluntary or involuntary, through the circumstances of life throughout history. And now we're in a different world. And the secondary piece to that is all of a sudden we had the invention of the birth control in the 1960s, which changed the possibility matrix for most women, let's face it. Millions of years of evolution, the only species on this planet for women to be able to control that, which opened up this whole range of possibilities, but now has changed the traditional social dynamics in such a radical way. We're still trying to adjust to that. And who knows how long it's going to take, and there'll probably some vacillations and too far and too back, and who knows where it'll all end up. Before we get to the warrior woman mode, how essential do you think those learning experiences, the tough things, the things that sucked or might have, been emotionally or psychologically, physically challenging, how much do you think they led to who you are today in your career right now?
I mean, they were instrumental in making me feel the level of, I hate to use the word passion, it's overused, but it's just like, I would never be able to, I don't love being on camera, and I would never be able to sit on camera now, especially with clients, in this interview, all of this, if I wasn't feeling such an underpinning of wanting people, and specifically and especially women, because I wanted and had to learn how to do that for myself, to show up every day, to be able to have self-worth and to be able to feel like I could love myself and care about who I am. And it's something I work on every single day. I had an Instagram live moment connection thing this morning for half an hour with one of my clients who wanted to share the work we've done and her success. And it's such a beautiful journey. I'm so proud of watching the women I get to work with. But a lot of what came up on the conversation is sort of mental health and how we're managing with what we're dealing with right now, and also how our mindsets affect everything that we do, right? It's it seems easy to say, but it's not, and it's like simple, not easy, right? Every day to wake up, to feel good, to get out of bed, and to know that if you just get outside, get some sun, and do the very best you can, that every day will feel hopefully a little bit more okay if you're struggling with that, right?
So let's go to the next phase here, where you kind of went from corporate America and living the corporate dream. At what point I would suspect, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you got disenchanted with that thing and decided, no, I'm going to go on a different route and throw barbells around and help women become warriors. So what happened there? Where did fast forward through that? Take us through that journey to get to where you're going today.
Yeah. So I was working incredibly crazy hours, 90-hour weeks for a long, long time. And in a way that's living in airplanes and hotels and really waking up and being where am I? What you think it's like a thing somebody sang about in a song, but it's I woke up on Tuesday, I had no idea. If I don't look at the hotel phone or the something, it would take me a few minutes, or maybe not even. I'd be where am I? And so that journey of working in corporate, and let me be real clear, I learned a lot about people I learned a lot about managing personalities. I managed massive teams. I hired thousands of people across the country. I educated them and taught them how to educate others. I learned about marketing. I had this amazing journey, but I was exhausted at the end of like 15 years of, because I don't do anything half measure.
Right, I got that.
So I'm like 110% in, wildly intense about the job, but I got to the end of 15 years, and the whole time, every market I landed in, you will appreciate this, I'd be like, where's the juice bar? Where's the vegetarian spot? Where's this place I could get like clean sourced animal products if I was eating those at the time? And I would have to kind of do that research in advance, like my own little, like play my own secretary and be like, okay, I want to stay at this hotel because it's close to this place and I can walk here and there's a yoga studio there. And so it was just like a little running joke amongst my team here and there, like, did you get the green juice place or the gluten-free shop? Or and so after years of doing that as a pastime and becoming a certified yoga teacher and studying nutrition and just plugging myself away at certifications on the side, it was sort of like my friends and family thinking like, when are you gonna like make the shift we all are waiting for you to make? And it probably took me longer than it took them to figure out. But after 15 years, I said, okay, the only way to really do this is to jump ship. And that was so hard. Like my last day was like an amazing day for the new adventure, and I like cried my eyes out at the office. I was working for Sailor Jerry Rum at the time, and I was had a wild, fun adventure with that brand. And I just sort of like gave myself a high five for those years and said, okay, reinvention, let's start again.
So then Monday hits. You've left the corporate career, you've left the safety net, you've left the corporate trajectory, right? What did you leave it for? What were you going towards at that moment?
At that moment, I was going towards understanding what it felt like to be on the back end or the inside of the fitness world in a way that wasn't like, I was never competing to the level that you were. I wasn't working on that. I was like, how can I help others by getting their physical form and shape? I have this dance background. I love all this fitness. I'm certified in like yoga and Zumba and strength training and all of these things. And so how can I do this? And so I looked and found a woman who was moving away, who had a small boutique fitness studio, and I bought the studio from her. I moved to New Hampshire.
So you bought this
I was like in
studio
New York City,
wow.
the hub of everything, and then I went to New Hampshire and was like,
whoa,
it's quiet here.
Whoa, it's a big shift.
It was a big shift.
Right.
And I was there for 2.5 years, and I did everything right and so many things wrong and everything you could possibly in between for a fitness studio owner. And I learned how I applied marketing where I used to have massive teams to do my brand marketing. It was just me.
Right.
And I set up classes and booked trainings and did all that. And I loved it. And in the end, I realized I kept running these like paleo challenges throughout the course of the 2 years I was there and then I also a big juicing challenge, which my ex-partner was calling juice apocalypse because I was making all of these juices, like hundreds in our home.
Anybody that's done juicing understands what that is. There's this fiber and juice and things blowing out. It's just a mess.
Like
I love juicing, but I'm super happy to walk over to Airwine here and just get my juice done. I know it's $20, but I just don't want the headache.
It's so crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had that big aha moment at the end where I was helping fitness studios. I was running my fitness studio. I was being asked by companies like MindBody to come and get paid to speak about marketing to the fitness world, and that was great. And I was like, I'm good at this. But you know when there's just that thing that's missing? And I was like, it's just missing.
Yeah, it's like a song without bass or something.
Yeah, totally.
There's no bass guitar. There's something missing here. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah. And so my heart was like going in the right direction. And I was like, it's close, I don't know. And then there was a year or so where I had, my father had a bout with cancer several times. And then a year he was very sick before he passed away. And that was a really challenging year. He passed away. My partner of 10 or 11 years and I in New Hampshire decided to split.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, little tragedy strikes there.
Yeah.
And that both was the worst year of my life following that and the best, because what it did was I broke off everything. I sold off the business lists and the name, and I picked my things up and I moved to Los Angeles, and I've been here 3 years since. And I had the vision for the business before. I had made the name like Warrior Woman Mode and a logo and like all the marketing things, but I didn't quite know how it would feel until I landed here. And some of my clients from fitness businesses or fitness studios before came on right away, and some of my clients were built through the relationships of me training different people in different modalities and boot camps here. And when I landed in California, thankfully I found like XPT and then Oxygen Advantage, and I got breathwork certified and cold exposure, and you know, all of the layers of the biohacking stuff, or that we would say the fitness piece sort of merged together.
Right.
Because I had been doing like Younger's book Clean and Dave, you know, all the bulletproof stuff. I had been doing that since New York, like 10, 12 years, when it was like the weirdo with butter in her coffee.
Right.
And that was part of the like discovery and research and intrigue, and my partner at the time, like I will always credit that he did so much research so that we could both do it together. It's always nice that when you have someone in your life who's like wanting to experiment.
So on the same page, with values, and hey, let's do some butter in my coffee and jump into ice baths
and feel all this stuff out.
Cool.
We had a Versa climber in the house.
Right.
It was like insane. And so I had that really beautiful baseline. Again, another thing that was like not an easy ending, but wouldn't trade because I would be so different. And then here I am in California, 3 years, and every single day I get to get up, and even the hard days I get to get up, and I know why I'm here. Like, and that's the moment, right? That's when you're like, okay, it's not easy, or today I might not make a ton of money, or, you know, these challenges arise, or you have a big success, but you still are like, both my feet are on the ground and my heart is full.
That's beautiful. This is such an interesting thing. You know, if New York is the center of corporate America, California is the center of health, fitness, and wellness, and these kind of areas. And I know my own journey spanned essentially 33 years to get to the point where I was actually living, working, and doing my thing here in Venice Beach, California. Let's dive into what you're doing now and how you're expressing yourself as and helping women. I think that's really where, and thank you for sharing all that personal side of the story. I think it's always, so many people kind of say, oh, like, you know, like you're jumping into ice baths and you're in this hot saunas and you're like throwing these ferocious weights around and you're like, you know, like you're a warrior woman. Like and people think, hey, she was just born this way, but you've really molded and craft yourself into the person that you are today. And these experiences, both positive and negative, are little parts that kind of make you. Tell me about your business right now and what you're doing and who you're helping and why that's so important and passionate for you. Because, you know, you like, as soon as you talk about it, you just light right up. And I want, and I think for everybody that is caught in the corporate machine, and some people are born and love it, and that's where they're going to be, and they're not listening to this podcast. Mm-hmm. And there's some people that are listening to this podcast that are in that and want to kind of express maybe a different way of being. And when I see people light up like that, I go, okay, that's a person that's on point. That like they've found their passion, they found what it is that they do, and however long it took them to get there is irrelevant to the point that they're there and they're expressing it. Talk to me about your work.
Yeah. So Warrior Woman Mode's been around for, I mean, I pulled the name, the LLC name, 5 years ago or something, and I wanted to have something that encapsulated strength and also a little bit of that, a nod to ancestral health in some way, but also, a lot of times, Warrior Woman Mode. I was telling you earlier that Sean Wells, who I've met recently, is like Warrior Woman Mode. Like people
right.
You do it like a radio VO, and
Warrior Woman Mode.
Totally. And I'm all like, my tagline is like, switch on Warrior Woman Mode, but
woo, yeah, booting up.
But in some way, there's like, I want women to understand how much they can sort of stand. I always talk about women as powerhouses, just like this like beacon of something that can have a ripple effect on the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And so there is that aspect of warrior, but I also like to always remind myself and the people I'm working with that there are, because that can be intense. I have an A-type personality. I work with a lot of A-type personality females, but there is a softness that we need to bring to ourselves, and there is a vulnerability. And I think especially, maybe it's California that's helped open me up slowly, but especially the last few years, I might not have talked about my background in the same way 5 years ago.
Right.
Because it felt personal or like a wound that I didn't want to share or something. And there is a softness, there's a strength in that softness of being able to say, here's where my broken parts are. you know? And so that's what I want to find women who feel like it's broken and show them it's not really broken. It's a very strong part to share.
There's a really interesting historical aspect of the Spartans that very few people know about, who were oftentimes considered kind of the ultimate icon of warrior mode. And I read the book on the Spartans and where the movie came from. And of course, there's historical aspects. And there was a couple things that was really interesting. But basically, it was one of the squires that had worked as serving one of the Spartan warriors, was captured in battle, and then after they kept him on, he released the whole concept, which had been hidden for hundreds of years, of how these Spartans actually lived. And a couple things that was really interesting is that the Spartan warriors would wear these bands into battle, and they would take them out, and they would put one in the bowl, okay, and they were a double piece. They put one in this bowl before the battle. And of course, like warriors back then, like people are running with 220 pounds of battle gear. They're beating each other, and it's like guts and blood and death and dying and stench and fire and people. It's horrific beyond anything we talk about. Hey, someone said something bad to me. We're talking about people running you with swords and beating you with hammers, and it's pretty intense. And after the war, after the battles, the adrenaline piece would be so intense that people would be bawling on the ground, laughing uncontrollably. They would literally go into a shock state because it was so intense, this life and battle thing. And of course, the Spartan warriors that were killed, of course, they would find that the bowl, maybe that person got maimed beyond recognition, or we can't see them, or they've been burnt to death or whatever. And the ones that would come back, the Leonidas would say, hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay to bring the emotional part, because this was you in your family life. This is you as the father. This is you as the husband. This is you as the person who operates there. That we put that in the bowl when we go to battle and we go warrior mode. Mm-hmm. But when we come back, it's okay to have these emotions and connections because we want to reconnect. And I think that's a really beautiful part about becoming a totally balanced human, is to be able to have that on switch to go after it and nothing touches you, and we're going to achieve our goals or whatever our objectives are, but to recognize that we can't be in that mode all the time. So when you say you flip the switch, or you help women maybe cultivate that warrior caricature, that icon, the Sasha Fierce, if you will, in their lives, where they go out into the world and being that, but they don't lose this other side of them, which is another aspect. And how do you communicate this to your clientele, and what type of clientele comes to see you, and that sort of thing? I'm curious about that, because this is a new era for women to kind of cultivate and adapt, and maybe some of the traditional upbringing or old paradigms don't necessarily, you talk about the shrinking away or not being able to do that. So how do you become a warrior, still retain your full femininity on the other softer parts, but know when to flip the switch and say, nah, not today?
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip: rapid cheat meal relief. Research shows that cheat meals can actually be an effective way to boost your metabolism. One key weight loss hormone, leptin, can be increased by up to 30% following a cheat meal. The challenge with the cheat meals is that all those extra calories and lower food quality can be hard to digest, which means you could be totally sidelined with a food coma after big cheat meals. The solution is to take strong digestive enzymes like masszymes, which will help rapidly digest and break down the extra food. 3 to 5 capsules before or right after your cheat meal can make a huge difference in how you feel following the cheat meal. If it's a cheat day with multiple large meals, you might want to go up to 10 capsules or higher to help you power through all that food. To save 10% on masszymes, go to masszymes.com. That's MASSZYMES.com and enter the code CHEAT10 at checkout.
I try to look at it. What I'm doing is working with women from a 360-degree health perspective, right? So I'm not a medical doctor. So in many cases, some women come to me, typically it's like 30 to 55-year-old women. They're coming to me for a number of reasons. pre-COVID, it was a little bit more of this, like, I want to lose weight to feel better, which I think you and I have talked about before. It's like, I don't believe that is, I think that's upside down. I think you need to cultivate a healthy body, and then you'll lose the fat if you're looking for fat loss, or you'll gain more muscle, or you'll have better mental acuity, or you'll sleep better. All those things happen. The weight loss comes when the body gets aligned, when homeostasis happens. And so what I want to do is I work with women to get them to understand that this is a 360-degree picture. And as much as we say that, we don't take the little actions every single day to make the shifts that need to happen in our physiology. So sometimes I will work if a woman comes to me and has a medical condition that's challenging. I will work with their doctor and just make sure there's conversations. We're all in the loop together, of course. But I spend 9 weeks with them, and I'm a combination of the best accountability cheerleader they could ever have, and a coach who has spent 20 plus years, if you go back to my certifications, all the research of just reading and learning and working and talking with mentors and knowing people like you, so that if I will never have every answer, but I know that I can pick up the phone and ask you a question, because look at the experience you bring to the table as someone who I know. And so I take this full picture of health, and I work with women, and I bring them through a 9-week journey. And it used to be an 8-week journey in the beginning, but I always find that when we first lay it out, everyone needs a planning week. They're like, okay,
right, yeah, exactly.
I see what's on the table. I've made this big commitment, but now I need to just set myself up for success, whether that means like grocery store trip or buying new sneakers, or just really
getting the prep down,
mindsetting themselves to go, okay, I'm in, right? It's like maybe taking the bracelet off and leaving it in the bowl at that point, and getting ready and knowing we are going to lean in, because we will speak every single day. We have a video call once a week. We speak every single day, at least on text. And each week, instead of trying to make them digest everything at once, each week we have a focus. And it's like every week you get an opportunity to focus heavily on something. And most of those focuses are layered on top of the baseline nutrition and the baseline fitness programming we've set up for them for the course of the 9 weeks. And so you can imagine if I gave them 7 things to do a day on top of food and fitness, they would be like, Kristin, I'm out of here. It's like, setting them up for failure.
So what is the typical, and I hate to generalize, but who are the type of women per se that are coming to you? What are they hoping to achieve? Or what's, the modus to get them there? And then what do they discover? Because I find that when I used to do a lot of personal training or coaching, people would come to me thinking, hey, I want this. I want a 6-pack. and I used to tell them, hey, you know what? Getting you in shape, that's easy. Figuring out what you think you're going to gain from looking a certain way, that's where the real rubber hits the road. So what type of women are coming to you? What are they coming for? And then what are they learning in the journey when they're with you?
Yeah, great question. Because I always say women will come to me and say, this is what I want. And I'm like, okay, you can have that, but you're also going to get what you need. Because you can't have a 6-pack if you get an hour of sleep a night. Like that that's the reality in many, many ways, you know? So women are coming to me typically because it is an intensive program. I mean, I have a great meal plan that's like DIY if you want to compartmentalize and work on some stuff and you're a good like go-getter. I have programs that are a little more DIY and digestible, pun intended. But the DIY, do it yourself, just like that are very that are a little more do it yourself and like self-paced. But the 9-week program it's like the diamond in the rough program. It's the chance for women to make a commitment to themselves, to get buy-in for their families, and just making sure everyone around them knows that they're doing it and that they have someone that's basically holding them, like, I'll catch you if you fall the entire time, right? To answer their questions, to not have to do all the research. And the women that are coming to me are quite often on the edge of burnout in some way. Right. They've tried 9 diets, they can't get the fat loss that they want, they feel terrible, they're not sleeping well. Right now, a lot of women are coming to me who are saying, I'm really depressed, I'm living in anxiety every day, and I don't even know why. Like, it's not like one thing happened in the morning, it's just, I wake up this way, and how do I have some solves for that? Women who are trying tons of different supplements and no idea what they're taking, why. They're just like, I saw it on this TV show, or this person said this, or whatever. And
I need to alleviate that anxiety by taking action and spending my resources because I get the little biochemical hit that I've done something to deal with this. Yeah. But you've never dealt with the absolute cause on the deep levels. You kind of, a lot of people don't realize that a great ton of marketing on television is driven by fear and lack. Mm-hmm. You're not worthy, you're not good enough, you've got this issue, go see your doctor, take this pill, take this drug.
If you just try my brand new
Right, yeah, or completely indulge yourself in, the luxury item of du jour so that you can get validation that you're worthy or that you're successful or that everything's okay. But those have, I would say, diminishing shelf lives. Yeah. Until eventually it doesn't matter, right? It's become like, a new car, a new dress, a new outfit, a new purse, a new program, whatever that the
I'll be happy, I'll be fit, I'll be healthy when I buy that thing. And yes. I would argue that you and me and everyone who's watching this, you yourself are the luxury item, and you need to find the way to start on the very inside. And it's going, this from working with many different athletes. It's like everyone has a different physiology and a different response mechanism to the way they perform, and figuring that out is an art. It's like it's where if I launch back into the career of hiring thousands of people and training thousands of people and working with all different types of personalities, it's where I got a level of mastery around getting to know a person quickly, right? Someone recently said to me, I interviewed a gentleman on my podcast who said, it takes a long time to learn someone. And I thought, there is some truth to that, but I also don't subscribe to that. I think if you are open and vulnerable and put your cards on the table, as many women do who come to me, because I very quickly want them to see the trust we can have amongst each other, and that requires me sharing as well. But it's like, if you can cut yourself open and put your cards on the table and say, here's where I'm broken, then you can, especially when you have a coach, right? You can build yourself to the place you want to go. Like I say in the beginning with women, I want to work this 9 weeks with you, and at the end, the thing I want to give you, I'm going to check in with you all the time to see if you feel like we're in the right trajectory, because at the end of this, I want you to meet the next version of you. And then, and that, I always say to them, it kind of sounds a little hokey, but the reality is that they will say to me at the end, that felt a little hokey when you said it back then, but now I can't believe the woman I am. I can't believe the person I've become. I can't believe I'm sleeping or eating, or I've worked with some women overseas who have a wonderful, fabulous cultural diet of fried food and sugary things, and they think, I'm just going to get through the 9 weeks so I can go eat that thing again. Right. And at the end of the 9 weeks, they're like, I don't really even want it, and I can't believe I'm saying this. It's like a living commercial for the work that I do, because their taste buds have changed, their physiology has changed, the way that they feel changes, and they know that it's not that important to have that thing. So the big full circle is that I work with meditation, I work with breath work, I work with cold exposure. If I can get them in a tub of ice, I'm down. But if not, they're taking cold showers.
What's that like? I mean, for people like, what do you mean in a tub of ice? Some people. Now, of course, many of our listeners are going to understand that, but let's talk about the tub of ice program that you may subject one of your students to. And before we get into that, I'll give you a moment to think about it. But I remember when I first hired my coach, Scott Abel, back in 1997, and he laid out some pretty harsh words for my diet, my training, and my supplements, and he just smashed me, but on the other side of it, he also said, look, as your coach, trust is earned, and so when we start off, your ability to communicate the information that's going on in your life in an absolutely transparent manner is critical. Because I'm gonna put you through things that you never thought you would ever dream of doing. And I always loved the movie. If you ever remember the Rocky movie, the Rocky movies is not him winning. That's the part that's cool. It's the transformation. Or if you watch The Hobbit, it's the transformation of the character. Or if you watch Dorothy, it's in The Wizard of Oz. It doesn't matter the hero's journey. It's not the outcome. It's who the person becomes in this journey, and exposure to their fallacies or their their insecurities or their weaknesses that allows them to come forward this. But jumping into an ice bath for a lot of people seems absolutely bananas. Mm-hmm. I mean, I left a cold country for that reason. Tell me why you do it, what's the benefit of do it, and what happens for women who engage in this process with you?
Yeah, I mean, cold exposure, ice bath, ice plunging. Lots of people know Wim Hof, right? So there's a lot of that, like Iceman. I think it's like
we need a nice woman, don't we?
We need a nice woman.
Don't I think so?
I'm ready for that role.
Right.
It's one of my favorite things. Like it's the thing that gets a little sensationalized because it's like on social media and Lady Gaga and then people are in ice and it feels very dramatic. But the ice, it's like as it goes in the ice, it goes in life. Like you want to find your blind spots, throw yourself in a 40-degree Fahrenheit tub of ice. And I know that sounds, a lot of times people will say, I'm working up to it. And it's like, okay. But unless you have a big contraindication that your doctor would tell you about or something, if you're like pregnant or you have heart disease or something, you can get in a bathtub of ice and you can manage it by using your breath and you can overcome it. And there are a massive amount of long-term benefits, but the other one thing you are always going to get out of it is learning mental toughness, learning resiliency, understanding how your nervous system responds to stress, and understanding how to downregulate in an intense moment so that when you're in traffic or there's an accident or trauma or COVID or any of that you can say, okay, I know how to do this. I know how to breathe through this. I know how to manage this. And I potentially just know how to get through the process, even if it doesn't feel so good. And that, to me, is like the number one benefit is like building resiliency, building mental toughness. And we could talk for a whole podcast about the benefits from a cellular level versus, I'm a fan of cold showers. You get benefits from that too. I'm a fan of cryotherapy, awesome. But the benefits are tenfold when you get in a bathtub of ice. The evidence and research sort of talks about for 6 minutes, even if you have to do 2 rounds of 3 minutes.
So let's walk. I think this is a really fascinating piece, and there's a lot of mystery around it. So imagine that I'm first-time person coming to your place, and I'm walking in the door, and you're like, okay, today is ice bath day. What is that process that you're walking a person through?
I am definitely, I'm trying to get people to know that it's something, there's 2 different ways it happens, right? If it's my one-on-one clients, they kind of know it's coming. If they followed me on social, they have some kind of relationship, they know that they'll have a week that is, I have one of my women who's in the cold exposure week right now, and she's texting me every day like, oh my God. But you know what? She's doing it, and it's great. So I like to have people know it's coming. I coach over here in Venice, not too far from you, on Wednesdays at Deuce Gym. Breath and exposure, so there's like sauna and ice and breath work there, and that combo just goes beautifully together. So mostly people know it's coming, but the anticipation of the ice bath is worse than the ice bath itself. Mm-hmm. And so
isn't that interesting, just the fear that it brings up for people? It's like, oh, I don't know if I can handle it. For
sure. It's like it's a notation on how you're not in the present, right? You're in what's going to happen in the future.
Correct.
So it's just like this little microcosm of showing you where your brain goes and
which is where a lot of anxiety comes from.
Totally.
A negative projection into the future.
That might not even happen, right?
Correct.
And many people get out of the ice and they're like, wow, that was awesome. I didn't think I could do that. And it's like, yes, you just did it. So there was no need to worry about it.
So you get them ready,
So we get them ready. I usually breathe them first, just meaning like I have a little session where they're breathing, where I talk about 2 or 3 pieces of downregulation. Less often do I do sort of Wim Hof style breathing, although it's beautiful. It depends on how your nervous system works. But for very first timers who are really nervous, I like to downregulate them using some breath work for about 10 minutes, getting people chill enough, maybe getting their mind off of it, that they're about to get into a cold tub of ice. And then I coach them. I have a conversation about how they need to enter the water, and I have a conversation about what they need to do. And so if we're going to talk specifics about it, it's very much like, don't stand on the side of the ice tub and anticipate for 5 minutes. You're only making it worse, right? You just go. Sometimes I have them do, hands on their hips and stand before they get in, but step in the ice. Some people like to hold their nose. I tell them to plunge their head underneath for a moment and then come up. And then we like put our thumbs and our fingers and cross our chest, which is just like this. You know, it's like it does warm you a little,
Sure.
but it just makes you feel a little bit more
Safer,
cozy
little
and
safer,
safe.
little safer to
And
the stress.
this is a good point, is that safety is the most important thing. Like the area, even at the gym, which is a hard banging barbell gym, you know, that's in the front of a garage, the space we have created has cactus and plants, and it's in the back, and it feels much like people need to feel like they're in safety in order to do things like that. So making sure they're feeling safe, and then I'm there every step of the way. I'm there, I'm timing them, I know how to talk to them, I know how to keep them in or get them out if there's any issue that arises, which, you know, I haven't lost anyone yet. And just really walking people through not having to have it always feel like a PR, like I'm going to do this many minutes, but just getting people to do, I always shoot to try to get people to do 3 minutes in the ice their very first time, even if I'm not telling them that, just so that they have a success barometer. But if they do 1.5 minutes and that's where they're at, then it's just as successful. It's just as beautiful.
Yeah.
And then, you know, plunge underneath before and then on the way out. And do a lot of breathing. So we do 2x breathing for the most part, long nasal exhales. And it's like, this is the thing. In stress, if we downregulate our breath, and that's like just a fancy way of saying that we are calming the breath by inhaling through mostly the nose, exhaling through the nose or hissing out the mouth for twice as long, it is sending a signal to the brain to calm ourselves, to calm our nervous system state, There's this beautiful moment that happens that you may have experienced in cold exposure, but I call it the turnover. It's not an official term. It's just when you see someone get in the ice, there's usually 30 to 60 seconds of, for lack of a better word, there's a little panic, a little fear, you have a response.
Some shock.
Yeah.
There's a shock factor.
And so those 30 to 60 seconds, that is the time I really have to coach them. Once they get to about the 60-second mark, there's this beautiful moment where the body and the brain and the nervous system has a turnover. And you can just even see it in their eyes and how they're breathing and how they're looking at you, like white knuckling the tub sides. And at 30 seconds, 60 seconds, it depends, everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
The turnover happens and they just sort of like let go into it and let go of all of the preconceived notions and the fear and the things and the cold. And the body is like shunting blood to the central part of the core, and the brain is kind of like, okay, you're actually going to stay in here, so we need to now re-regulate to make this stress manageable. And it's just this beautiful moment. It's like this opening, right? Not to sound all yogic, but it's just like the moment of letting go that happens. And then people can have a conversation with you and be fine and be wonderful and, you know, just go for it.
I had Mark Devine, the Navy SEAL that developed SEAL Fit, and he was on the podcast recently, and I thought it was very interesting he said a big aspect of the SEAL training is just staying in the breath. And these are guys that are risking their lives in the most insane kind of situations, underwater, behind enemy lines, you know, getting bad guys, like true life and death situations. And I thought it was so fascinating. It was like, yeah, we start teaching people breath, how to manage their breath in order to just regulate. And in a world that's so stimulant oriented and adrenaline kind of cortisol dumping and dopamine response with all this digital stuff, it's an inversion to maybe accessing an aspect of our physiology that I think is required in an increasingly complex or anxiety-driven world.
Yeah.
What's some other things that you do with your ladies coming
We
into the
do.
program?
I mean, we do a lot around breath work because I think it's like the overlooked, inexpensive gem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we put it number 1 on the awesome formula: air, water, and exercise before you even get to food.
Totally. And there's just more and more studies. Like Patrick McEwen has come out with a couple books. I mean, James Nestor's book Breath is been a New York Times bestseller. Patrick talks a lot about the research. His book is Oxygen Advantage. The new one that's just in pre-sale now is called The Breathing Cure. It is about all different correlations from research that is good, deep, years of research, put into summarization against different illnesses, disease, stress, even COVID. And I love this book, The Breathing Cure, because it's got two, of course I was like, I have to have an early copy, but there's 2 chapters on women and breathing and how structurally and hormonally it affects our breath. And there's a chapter on sex and orgasm and breathing, which is like everyone needs to read that.
Yeah, that's first chapter I recommend.
Exactly. And so it's like, how do we get to use the breath to solve so many of the issues that have arisen for us today? And how are we many of us breathing wrong? And so I do, for every woman that shows up to me, I customize the program. So it's not, in many cases, I will have 2 different focal weeks around breath, because one is learning how to calm the breath and use nasal breathing, and one is really around how we can put ourselves into like a high performance state, or how we can do physical activity with the breath and really give ourselves the most benefit possible. But that spans all the way to the crazy, fringes. And I don't even think it's fringes, but when I talk about mouth taping, when people sleep, it spans to that. So I have some clients that will do that. I've had women come to me now just saying, I want to do 8 weeks, but I want to do all breath, because they have sleep apnea or asthma or something that's really challenging, or the onset of like all of the COVID scare. People want to learn how to breathe better, which is another silver lining of this.
I've had mouth taping suggested to me ever since I entered into school. Someone wanted to tape my mouth up, and finally I developed a career of just blabbing. So I'm totally resistant. So one of my coaches the other day said to me, what do you feel? How do you feel about mouth taping at night? I'm like, not doing it. But that's my choice. But anyways, I understand the mechanism and why that is. I just I have to work out that deviant aspect of my psychology.
So, we do other de-stressing modalities, like a lot around meditation. I do a decent amount of aggregation, meaning I will use a plethora of different meditation teachers and styles and share with them, because people need to kind of find the right meditation partner style.
Right, yeah, there's so many different types. People say meditation, but there's so many different styles and ways.
Totally.
But it's just a new way of kind of interiorization.
Yeah. And for the breath work, I do all the recordings custom for them. So they tell me what they like in music and whatever, and I record them all because I love doing that. And then I would be remiss to not talk about, the biggest piece of, we set a lifestyle eating choice for them, a food plan. I'm trying to work to build metabolic flexibility, but their nutritional support program, and this is how you and I know each other, is very, it is very supplement based. And so me looking throughout the course of the years, finding the partners where I was like, I know the sourcing is good. I know that the guys running the show are noble and, want to spread love in the world as well as health, right? And are ethical and all of that. And that's how I found you in the beginning. And I am, always so thankful to have brands like yours, like Bioptimizers, to work with, because women's lives are changing and their guts are changing and they're understanding. The biggest thing I can give a woman is not just this 9 weeks of being the very best health optimizer buddy she's ever had, but the thing that I can give these women is like, at the end of this, I want you to be able to go say to a few of your friends, hey, I have some information I can share. And you know what? I can go back to every one of those emails. I could run the program for myself again in 3 months if I need a little reset. I've educated them enough that they are now more educated, and they know what they didn't have to do. They didn't have to go through 19 hours of Googling and misinformation and have all these failures, because they've had someone who, on the road to success, I've had plenty of failures, right? It's like
success road is paved with failure flagstones.
Totally. And so it's like, how do we fail faster? How do we I really love just leaning into it now, right? It's like, it's uncomfortable, but it's also like, I know at the other side of the mindset challenge or the issue that may arise in my life, that there's going to be something that I can bring to a client that alleviates them having to spend years or months or days or whatever. Just they'll do it in less time. So how is that? Like at the end of 9 weeks, it's like, I've given you everything I got. If you need more, then you go to Wade or you go to the next person.
Right.
But like everything, I want, the very best client I can have is a woman who comes to me and is like, you're a lemon and I'm going to get every drop of juice out of you, and I'm going to, for every dollar I spend with you, I'm going to just get everything, because that's why I'm put on this earth, is like, I will give them every part of me. And I always say to the women, it's like the first thing in the morning I will check in with them. It's like, I wake up, I meditate, I make my coffee, I meditate, and then the first however many women, 5 to 10 women that I think of, are the women that I'm working with one-on-one. And it's nice to know that someone's giving a crap about you first thing in the morning. I have been fortunate enough to have people care for me in that way, and I want the women I work with to know that I'm in their corner in that way, A
couple more things. Fast forward to the end of your life. How do you want to be known? Recognized, looking back on your life, how do you want to see it?
I love that you're asking this question, because the part of the reason I left corporate America is I said, look, I don't want to be like 80, 90, 150, however long I'm going to live, but I don't want to be that age and then have everyone gather around and be like, she got everyone into the best bars and the best cocktails ever. Like that was
cool when you're 20,
cool.
right? Yeah, it was pretty cool, right?
But it's really a big part of how I made the final like decision to leap, was thinking, this is not the legacy I want to leave for myself. The legacy I want to leave for myself is that I'm giving women a platform. Like we talk about the shoulders of giants. It's like I want to be able to give women faster, better, stronger platforms to stand on, to be their very best selves, like, and their very best health. And the only way that I can continually do that is by doing what I'm doing now, right? Whether anyone likes it or not, right?
Beautiful.
That's the other message that you have a lot that I think is important to always share with the audience is, whether anyone likes it or not, you figure out what you're here to do in this world, and then you just do it over and over again to the best of your ability, because if you know, right?
Couple fast questions before we wrap it up, and kind of go to all your things, because I always like this fun stuff. Favorite healthy food?
Favorite healthy food? I'm a sucker for an avocado.
There you go. Favorite unhealthy or decadent food that you'd have? Something that's off the list regularly.
Chunky Monkey Ben and Jerry's.
There you go.
Oh my God. Don't tell anyone. Oh, we just told everyone.
Favorite or most impactful book?
I've been talking about it a lot lately, but I'm just going to say it anyway. There's a book called Going Right by Logan Gelbrick, who you know.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
It's a logical justification for pursuing your dreams.
Awesome. Favorite movie?
Breakfast Club.
Why?
I wrote my college essay on the Breakfast Club movie because I thought in each one of us lives each one of those characters. There's a version of the dirtbag and the cheerleader and the junkie and so like, how do we put those together in a way that forms the person that we are?
Most influential person in your life?
My dad.
Why?
He taught me about unconditional love. He taught me that you can, even if you're not 100% sure what someone's doing, if they're really excited about it, you should try to cheer them on. And he gave me permission. He was the first one to sort of give me this nickname, Hurricane, when I was a little kid.
Love it.
And that stuck with me through, we were talking about Burning Man earlier. And he just let me be me without judgment.
Favorite vacation spot?
Maui.
And I think I'll get a couple more here that I can come up with. What would you say is the historical person that most influenced you?
Does it have to be dead? Like that?
Doesn't matter,
No.
anybody that in your history.
I mean, here's the thing. I feel like I should have an answer that's like, who's like the woman that really influenced me? I read a lot of, I want to say Shakespeare because I feel like I did all this theater stuff and I
Right.
really loved it. If you're talking about someone who's like long gone and just
Beautiful
living
insight
through,
into the human condition,
yeah,
right?
totally. Like there's that, and then there's the first answer that came to my mind was Mark Sisson.
Oh, right on. Okay,
Because he
cool.
really,
Yeah.
that was like, when reading his work, reading Mark's Daily Apple all those years ago, that was like lots of his great job of summarizing research, and like lots of it was like slaps in the face. Like talk about disconfirming information.
Sure.
Like it's like, wait, what? Wait, what's happening? So that I would say from the onset of nutritional curiosity, Sisson was a big
He's
player.
Great. He's one of the great
Yeah.
influencers of our world and doing such a great work.
Yeah. But let me say one other person who is
Yes.
Emily Fletcher. She's a very big influence on me. She's an amazing woman, and she runs Ziva Meditation because she's always in the back of my mind. I meditate every day, and she's someone who got me to really be able to manage my emotions through meditation.
Another great contribution right there.
Yeah.
So we'll put some links to that.
Yeah.
Where can people find you? Social media, website, all that sort of stuff?
All of it is at that mouthful of Warrior Woman Mode. Instagram is there, warriorwomanmode.com. I have a podcast called Well Power. Wade is one of the most fabulous episodes. You have to come listen to Wade on the Well Power podcast as well. And yeah, and then you guys also are putting a link in for my 30-day meal plan, which teaches women how to eat with their cycle and train with their cycle and has some fun recipes in it. I'm not a chef, but I worked really hard for a year to pull together the best of the best easy peasy recipes. And I gave you guys a code so your audience can get it for a really sweet deal.
Well, you know where to find it. All the links are there. I want to thank you to all our listeners who listened to this episode of the Awesome Health Podcast by Bioptimizers. And thank you for joining us, Kristin,
so
and
happy to be
the
here.
Warrior Woman Mode. All the links and connections to that will be found in the show notes. And of course, welcome to the first video podcast thing. I want to thank our behind-the-scenes man, Dex, over here, and Kristin. I know you've been waiting for this, and it's great to have you as the first guest, and I know we'll be having you back again for some of the events and some of the things we'll be doing. Maybe next time we'll go upstairs and throw some weights around up on the roof up at God's gym. So for all our listeners, thank you for joining us for our very first In the Bio Home video episode. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
And now for a Bioptimizers fixed digestion tip. How to get away with eating sugar. Hey, look, sugar is normally one of the worst things for you. But let's be honest. I mean, we all cheat from time to time. And here's a little trick that will ensure your body benefits from the sugar. Now, before you eat or drink anything sweet, take 5 to 8 capsules of P3OM. The patented strain in the formula devours sugar so fast, it literally doubles in the body every 20 minutes in the presence of sugar. That doesn't mean that you can or you should eat a bunch of sugar or sit around all day doing that. But on the days that you do cheat or you go after one of those maybe meals that you wouldn't normally do, this ensures that you get something in your gut that eats the sugar. And it's not going to feed the bad guys or spike your blood glucose nearly as much. So to learn more about P3OM and its sugar-devouring and protein-digesting properties and how it can transform your gut and metabolism, go to www.bioptimizers.com.
Thank you for listening to the Bioptimizers Awesome Health Podcast. You can find more information at bioptimizers.com.